Hello and welcome to another episode of Historic Hindsight. I'm John, that's Tom, and today we're talking about Cincinnati Bengals coach Zachary Taylor.
That's right, Johnny. We are talking about Zachary Taylor, and I tell you, it would have been a whole hell of a lot easier of an episode if we were, in fact, talking about Cincinnati's head coach Zachary Taylor, but we're talking about President Taylor?
President of what?
Of the United States of America, briefly.
Of these United States?
Of these United States, briefly, from 1849 to 1850, until he dies under suspicious circumstances, which then, in fact, has its own conspiracy theory. But that's jumping the gun, and I don't want to spoil a 15-minute episode for you guys.
All right, so
Zachary Taylor.
What does this guy do?
The next president on the line of our Dark Presidents, Dark Tweets series that we've got going on here. And we got to start with all the presidents in the same space that we start with all the other presidents, and that's slavery. Yep. Owned them.
Right, yeah.
Owned a lot of them.
Yeah.
Over 300
sure.
that we know of. And that's a low estimate. And that's actually the third most slave-owning president so far to date. Just underneath Jefferson and then Washington. So, you know, we're getting there. Yeah.
Which were way earlier on in the country.
Yeah, Washington is the number one slave owner with over 600. Jefferson's like 300 to like 500-ish. And then we've got Taylor here who's
just right in the mix.
Right in there in the mix, yep. So, he is the last president to bring slaves with him to the White House, so that's at least good news. We're starting an upward, trend of that not being an appropriate thing to do. And he is a bit of an odd duck when it comes to slavery and his thoughts on slavery. So, he very much defends the institution, obviously, because he owns 300 slaves. Obviously, he's like, yeah, keep it going. But he also is like, maybe we should just stop it where it is. Maybe we don't need to.
Maybe I'm the last person that gets to benefit from this.
From this
institution. As long as me and my generation continues to benefit afterwards, get rid of it.
Now, I say this estimate is an ish estimate because it's hard to really know because he actually wound up owning multiple plantations, doesn't directly oversee these plantations himself, but goes and visits from time to time, buys plantations for his children, all that fun stuff. So it's hard to estimate the exact number. It's also hard to estimate the exact number because most of his holdings during the Civil War were taken over by Union boys who then emptied the properties of everything, burning documents, burning everything of value, stealing everything that wasn't laid down, which is what you get when you're a traitorous whoremonger. So, you know.
Yeah, and a bit of a real estate mogul, too. You're going to have, if you have a bunch of properties, you're going to get them ransacked during war, right?
Yes.
That's just part of it.
Now, when it comes to his presidency, he's actually vehemently opposed to the Compromise of 1850. Now, if you don't know what the Compromise of 1850 is, which I know you yourself, Johnny, don't, and I know everybody at home doesn't because we don't really talk about shit when it comes to laws and lead-ups of really big events. Mexican-American War happens. We get a shit ton of territory as a direct result of the Mexican-American War.
Right.
Up to this point, it was an even slave-free state mix. You had as many free states as you had slave states. Now we got all these new territories. Oh, shit. What is it that we're going to do? So the compromise laid out that California would be admitted as a free state. Washington, D.C. would make it illegal for the slave trade to exist in Washington, D.C. Not that you couldn't own slaves, but that you couldn't trade in the slaves. Yes.
Had to go outside of D.C. to do your trading.
And in order for those two things to happen, the territories that are coming in from Mexico, i.e., the Oklahoma region, all that, Nevada, all that crap, that chunk of not Oklahoma, I'm sorry. Nevada, Arizona,
further,
that middle Southwest, they could be opened up to the possibility of becoming NS slave states. They aren't guaranteed to come in as slave states, but it is possible for them to be admitted.
It would come down. They would, I assume, the people in the territory state, whatever, would vote on whether or not they wanted to become a slave state or not.
And he was vehemently opposed to that, not because free states coming in, but because of the opposite. He thought that the institution of slavery as an economic system was not viable in the new territories, wasn't necessary in the new territories, and including them and thrusting them into the new territories would cause a little bit of, it's controversy that we just don't need. We don't need that controversy. Slavery is doing just fine. That agrarian planter class is doing just fine in the South. You don't need to expand it. Leave it
so
as
he just wanted them for himself. That's
yes.
it. He didn't want other people to benefit. He felt fine benefiting from it. He just thought nobody else should be able to. It's mine. He's like a little slave dragon.
And I'm glad you said that, because while he's arguing against the Compromise of 1850, he buys a plantation for his child and an additional 64 slaves. So there it is.
Yeah,
he wants it for himself.
Yeah,
less competition. If
Yeah,
there's
he's
limited
just a
pool of
scumbag.
slaves, that means that their value goes up.
That's true. Yeah,
He's thinking about it.
And he, as a real estate mogul that he was, he's savvy to supply and demand, and making good and sound investments. And what makes a better investment than just allowing other people to have a thing to say?
Exactly. Now, we don't know specifically how he treated his slaves. Again, being as he wasn't really directly on the plantations, monitoring day to day. Who knows? Who cares? And I am going to mention that there are rumors that he has an illegitimate black child, son of color child, that he shipped away right before the presidency, up to Canada.
Wait, why to Canada?
Well, then he could be free, scurry away that's like the only.
Okay.
This is speculation. There's no hard evidence of this. This isn't like Jefferson where we've got DNA.
This child ever existed, or?
Oh no, he definitely scurried away a slave up to Canada.
Okay, but whether or not it was
whether it was the son or not,
not,
that's speculation. Could have been his son's son. Who knows? Let's be honest. What's good for the goose, good for the gander, that whole fun stuff, right?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, or.
So that's the slavery. He's not the worst dude that owned slaves, but he owned a shit ton of them, and then he was very hypocritical in regarding the institution of slavery. But since he was fighting against its expansion, I mean, you can't really. He's not all evil. He's like a normal human being.
Okay.
A little bit of both. He's a douche,
Sure.
but not a super douche.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. I mean, he is Paul Park for the course. I don't know. He's.
Whatever.
It's one of those things where, like, he's right about not wanting to expand slavery and everything, but I think it's for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
I don't think it's because he has a good heart.
No, he definitely didn't think they were people. And that's the other thing I forgot to mention. He also definitely doesn't think they're people, because when he dies, in his will, it explicitly states these slaves and their offspring will remain property of my family forever, or at least until a war breaks out, and then that's no longer allowed. But
they make that illegal.
His intention was for them to be slaves.
For the next 15 years, it's
they could have owned him, right? Now, onto his politics, Johnny. Dude never voted, ever, once, in any election, local, state, federal. Never voted.
Maybe he just never had a candidate who he fully supported, and so he was just taking a principled stand.
He viewed himself as an independent, viewed most politicians as corrupt, which can't blame the guy.
See, that's what I'm saying.
That's okay. And then the Whig Party was looking for a non-offensive candidate, and at the time where slavery is a hot-button issue, getting a guy who's kind of wishy-washy on the subject, that's about as least offensive as you can get. So they nominate him. Without his knowledge, he didn't go to the Whig convention, didn't participate in the Whig politics, didn't read the letter that was mailed to him, said, "Hey, congratulations, you're a nominee."
What was he
and
doing
only finds
when he
out
got nominated? What was his position?
So Zachary Taylor is a famous military man. He was famous in battles of the War of 1812, and he is pretty much your main commander in the Mexican-American War, and he's a hero-ish. And just like in the Civil War, he makes some good moves. He makes some really bad blunders, all rolled into one. But we don't really have a proud military tradition of like.
All right, so he's just some white guy.
He's and that's like Johnny. That's his campaign. He's like, I killed people, and I did an okay job at it. Vote for me. He doesn't talk
people love
at
that.
all.
Like, that's.
Like, it doesn't talk at all about what he wants to do. There's no, like, I'm going to lower taxes.
Why he won.
It's just kill people.
Yeah.
That were brown.
That's what we want. We want a real American. I've killed people, too. That's who I want in office.
So the Whigs put him up. They nominate him. He finds out several weeks later when a guy from the Whig Party knocks on the door. He's like, hey, you're our nominee. And he goes, oh, shit, really? Well, I guess. He will actually have Abraham Lincoln campaign for him, so that's fun little historical ties. And Grant is actually an underling underneath Taylor during the Mexican-American War and emulates a lot of Grant's own like military doctrine off of Taylor, including the fact that Taylor didn't like to wear military uniforms. Every picture you see of Taylor, he's in a military uniform. But in reality, never wore them, didn't like them, only wore them when he had to. He would go into battle in like farmer clothes, just like...
Not a bad strategy, because somebody might see him and be like, "Oh, that's a civilian. Not gonna
leave him
shoot
alone.
him." You're walking in a weird spot. Why are you doing that? But maybe he got spared, or at least people hesitated.
Once he is elected, which is a very close race, actually, he does carry as many states as his opponent. They both carry 15 states each, 15-15, but it's the United States, so Electoral College wins. But he also does win the popular vote, 47% of the vote to his opponent's 42%. So
So rightful winner.
He's a rightful
Any way
winner.
you cut it.
As he's elected, he definitely fights the expansion of slavery. Even talks of secession start coming out because the South, like once he starts fighting against the expansion, they're like, we can't have this guy. He's one of them Yankees. He's one of them Southern Unionists. We can't have that. So they all vote
to like take my slaves' jobs.
Yeah, that's exactly. If you're not all about like let's expand them, take our seat. Anyways. So there's talks about secession, and Taylor's legitimately like, this will not. He's a unionist. This is a union. We are all one country. He will fight tooth and nail to keep it together as a union. So he's not gonna let that happen.
No, not in the 1 year that he had at the helm.
And that's where we start taking controversy. But before there, I have to talk about the one thing that he did do as president. He had one accomplishment.
Great. Not bad. Not bad. Sometimes that's all you want a president to do, really. Let's be honest.
Johnny,
sometimes
it's the Clayton-Bulwer Treaty of 1850, which basically is that England and the United States were fighting over South America. There were talks that one of them was going to build a canal through Nicaragua. Canal has not been built. Haven't even started on a canal being built, but there are talks.
Okay.
That we want to do that for commerce, and when we do it, who gets to own it? So this treaty says nobody gets to own it. Not us. It won't be owned by either the United States or England. That's the one. So,
like, say they're going to give it to Nicaraguan? No.
That's the one thing.
No, of course
that's
not.
That's the one thing.
All right. So he made sure that nobody got a canal that never existed.
Well, it didn't exist at the time. I think it does eventually get built, but it doesn't. It's not.
Didn't it get built through Panama?
I think so. Yeah. The Panama Canal. Yeah, that one.
So they just don't care about the countries or whatever. They're just like, whatever canal goes through, whatever the hell land that other people own that I don't care about, that will be the owner. Okay, all right.
And then the dude dies only after 16 months of being in office.
Oof.
And here's
how did he die?
So here's the conspiracy. So Taylor goes. So keep in mind, he's fighting against the expansion of slavery. There are people that very much don't like that.
Right. Yeah.
He is at a 4th of July party. He's at a 4th of July party in 1850 where they're raising money for the Washington Monument, which is already under construction, but it's not done, so they're raising money for it. It's just your normal DC bullshit party. Yeah. He's at the party. He is eating copious amounts of cherries and drinking a lot of iced milk. Not the partier that I would be doing if I was in that position, but sure.
Iced milk and cherries?
Iced milk and cherries. That's his go-to for a party. Not whiskey, not tobacco, not beer.
I don't like him anymore. That's terrible. Why?
Iced milk and cherries.
What the hell? Why would you? All right. I don't blame whoever killed him.
He goes home from that party with a tummy ache. The next day, he's working through it. Like, it's not awful, but he's working through it. But then as the days progress, it gets worse and worse and worse. He's diagnosed with cholera morbus, cholera morbus, which is basically a flexible yield term for his tum-tum hurts. Because they don't know what any diseases are. They're just like,
his appendix blew up, probably.
No. We know that didn't happen. We also know that there were a few other cabinet members that also came down with upset tum-tums after the party, but they recuperated pretty quick. They also weren't eating copious amounts of cherries and iced milk. They only had a couple of cherries and iced milk. He had copious amounts
Was he eating the seeds too? Maybe.
Well, because arsenic is a thing that does exist in cherry seeds. Is it cherry seeds? Yeah, cherry seeds. Or is that apples?
I think so.
One of the seeds has arsenic. It might be cherry.
I think you're not supposed to eat the pits of cherries.
You're definitely not supposed to eat the pits of cherries. That is a true
And if
thing.
he's getting pretty, sloshed off of iced milk, maybe he just started popping them whole.
He might have. That might have. Calm down there with your milk. Iced milk. He is going to get a fever several days later, and at 10:35 p.m. on July 9th, he dies.
Oh, damn. That's dead. So whatever took him quick.
Whatever took him quick. Soon after, his Vice President Fillmore gets put into the office. He signs into the law, the Compromise of 1850, which Taylor violently opposed. Weird set of circumstances, but okay, sure. He could have vetoed it, but he signs it into law. The rumors immediately start that either Southern slave owners potentially assassinated him, or the Catholic Church potentially assassinated him, including Fillmore, who got a letter in the mail that said the Jesuits did it. So, at the time, there was a thought that...
But they don't have a method for it. They don't say they did it in this way because they don't know how he died. Really.
No, they just dude shit himself, and that's weird, which is not weird because cholera is a thing that's rampant.
Welcome to 1850.
Right?
People get tummy aches and then die a lot. These rumors happens.
These rumors become more prevalent after Lincoln gets assassinated because they're
oh, now it's a whole deep-seated
this is the deep state.
Illuminati type stuff starts coming out. And,
The rumors persist all the way up until 1991 when a Clara Rising, who was at the time a professor of the University of Florida, convinces Taylor's relatives to actually have the body exhumed and examined. The study finds insufficient levels of arsenic to state definitively that it was poison and blames it on cholera, as D.C. had open sewers at the time, and that wasn't unheard of. There were still questions about this study because the type of study that did define the arsenic wasn't great, and especially not great by today's standards, and there wasn't a cholera epidemic. Yeah, but there wasn't a cholera epidemic at Washington, D.C. at the time that he died. It's not like a...
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize that people only got cholera during an epidemic. I didn't realize that was the only time people got it. They didn't just happen to get it, here and there. It was only during epidemics, which was weird.
So in 2010, Johnny, and you're drinking copious amounts of iced milk and drinking cherries, which I'm sure were picked by people whose hands who definitely didn't fucking wash
super
it.
Clean.
And the milk, I'm sure, was definitely clean and kept at a cool temperature the entire time and not just left out in the sun because it's July 4th in Washington fucking D.C.
Well, but they put ice in it, so
it's fine. It's fine.
Okay.
Now, in 2010, they did a restudy of the materials found. What was left from the 1991 study, they redid it with the new test results,
new instruments.
And they find that it's inconclusive one way or the other. They didn't find enough arsenic to say that it was poison, but they also didn't find any signs that it was cholera either. But of course you didn't, because it's fucking body remains from a dude who died over 100 years ago.
150
years ago that you're testing from storage from 1991 to now. Shit, we had semen samples from 1991 that was stored that we still don't we can't definitively prove that this was even human semen or not because they just fucking left that shit out in the sun. So I'm not surprised it was. I don't know. I made that last part up. It doesn't matter. There's a lot of shit that you find that evidence back in the day.
It's just a weird.
Contained
weird example.
I know. I just went. I don't know. Right. Right there. It doesn't matter. So we got a guy who was in office for 16 months, made sure that if a canal was built, it wasn't owned by England or the United States solely, and that's it. Owned 300 or more people. Yay.
That's it for this week in Historic Hindsight. Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review, and join us next week when we talk about something even more interesting.
Maybe.